If you've ever sensed an invisible thread pulling between you and someone who isn't yours to claim, what I'm about to reveal will shift everything you thought you understood about human connection. Hey everyone, welcome to Psych Seeker. Before we go further, hit that like button and subscribe because the psychological patterns I'm sharing today are rarely discussed openly, yet they govern attraction in ways most people never recognize. I'm approaching this as someone trained in behavioral psychology, not to encourage fantasy, but to decode reality. When a woman develops feelings for someone while remaining in another relationship, her psychology doesn't broadcast the shift through obvious declarations. Instead, it surfaces through behavioral microsignals that only observant individuals detect. The first indicator revolves around focused concentration. She doesn't merely glance in your direction. She absorbs details about you with unusual precision. Your mannerisms, vocal inflections, and moments of silence all register deeply. You'll discover she recalls fragments of conversations you barely remember having. A comment you made casually 3 weeks prior. An observation you shared without emphasis. This transcends ordinary interest. It represents cognitive prioritization. Her mental resources are tagging you as emotionally significant, and here's why that matters profoundly. Attention functions as the initial investment in emotional bonds. When her mental energy redirects toward you rather than her current partner, an underlying psychological architecture has already begun transforming. The second signal manifests through comparison dynamics. She subtly measures differences, sometimes wordlessly, through energetic shifts. Discussions about her existing relationship carry peculiar emotional flatness, zero animation, minimal enthusiasm. Yet when engaging with you, even discussing mundane topics, her vocal tone radiates vitality. This isn't random chance. The nervous system reveals authentic aliveness through involuntary responses. She might maintain behavioral loyalty, but emotionally, gravitational forces are realigning. Here's the psychological truth many overlook completely. A woman doesn't develop feelings solely because of your actions. She falls based on how your presence makes her feel. Witnessed, secure, energized, comprehended without pretense. When she extends conversations unnaturally, transforming brief exchanges into lengthy dialogues, postponing departures without logical explanation, you've transcended acquaintance status in her emotional landscape. Now pay close attention. This isn't authorization to pursue without boundaries. This is perceptual clarity, because the third signal involves internal struggle. You'll observe her oscillating between approach and withdrawal, affectionate one moment, distant the following day. That pattern isn't uncertainty. It's a moral framework colliding with emotional desire. This push-pull dynamic represents the psychological fingerprint of restrained attraction. Misinterpreting this pattern risks causing damage to either party. The fourth transformation appears through vulnerability exposure. She discloses anxieties she typically guards. Disappointments are normally concealed behind social masks. You're granted access to dimensions of her inner world her current partner rarely witnesses anymore. When this threshold is crossed, you've moved beyond casual status. You're achieving emotional relevance, and relevance serves as the gateway through which deeper feelings gradually enter. If even a single indicator resonates uncomfortably, avoid hasty conclusions, but don't dismiss the evidence either. Attraction rarely announces itself through verbal confession. It communicates through behavioral patterns long before words crystallize the truth. How you handle this awareness reflects your character more than her emotional state. Stay engaged because the forthcoming insights become sharper, testing your grasp of human desire's architecture. The fifth signal hides within what most completely misunderstand, her defensive reactions. When a woman develops feelings for you while committed elsewhere, she doesn't consistently move closer. Frequently, she does the reverse. She establishes protocols, creates distance, implements sudden boundaries previously absent. This confuses observers because they assume attraction always draws inward. Psychologically, attraction coupled with guilt often pushes outward initially. As her feelings cross internal thresholds, her conscience activates like a security system. She restricts interaction frequency, becomes more formal and less spontaneous, then unexpectedly returns to warmth again. This emotional stuttering isn't rejection, it's a containment strategy. She's preventing a small emotional breach from becoming catastrophic flooding. Paradoxically, the stronger the attraction, the stricter the self-imposed regulations become. The sixth signal emerges through absent sensitivity. When you withdraw, even minimally, she registers it instantly, not through overt complaint, but typically through subtle unease. She initiates contact using socially acceptable pretexts, sends messages technically devoid of emotional content, poses neutral questions concealing emotional curiosity beneath the surface. This distinction matters critically. A woman without emotional investment doesn't monitor absence patterns. Silence doesn't disturb her psychological equilibrium. But when conflicted attachment exists, your disappearance generates emotional static she cannot disregard. Understand this carefully. She might never verbalize missing you. Instead, you'll perceive it through message timing patterns. Response velocity. The relief is subtly expressed when communication resumes. These aren't coincidental. They're regulatory behaviors. The mind attempting to stabilize emotional imbalance without acknowledging the root cause. The seventh signal surfaces when she advocates for you in your absence. Someone delivers casual criticism about you, a joke targeting you. Her reaction exceeds situational appropriateness, not combatively, but with a subtle protective instinct. She reframes your character, justifies your choices, and softens others' perceptions of you. Social loyalty is beginning its transfer, long preceding any physical loyalty shift. Here's the uncomfortable psychological layer beneath everything. She's constructing an internalized representation of you, a reference framework. You begin influencing her interpretive lens for situations, her self-evaluation processes, her emotional experience analysis. When she starts inquiring, what would your perspective be on this? Even casually posed, you've penetrated her decision-making territory. That's not superficial ground. That's emotional primacy forming silently. But listen with precision now. This juncture is where most sabotage everything. They detect this gravitational shift and grow impatient. They demand clarity, confession, tangible proof. Pressure precisely dismantles the emotional structure she's struggling to maintain. When a woman experiences internal division, she requires temporal space to resolve identity conflict before addressing relationship conflict. Forcing premature resolution makes her fear dominate, not her feelings. Attraction flourishes within emotional safety, not pursuit, not confrontation. You're being evaluated presently, not on how desired you feel, but on your groundedness when desire exists without permission for action. The eighth signal is subtle and widely overlooked, subconscious synchronization. You've witnessed it previously, how she begins adopting your gestures, her conversational tone echoing yours, nearly imperceptible, yet psychologically factual. When a woman mirrors you unconsciously, she's mentally harmonizing with you. Her subconscious attempts connection creation before conscious permission arrives. This occurs because humans seek familiarity and security in relationships. When emotionally drawn to you, her physiology and psychology begin rehearsing alignment, even if her conscious mind resists. You'll notice it through posture adjustments, laughter patterns, and speech rhythms. It's not imitation, it's neurological reconfiguration. You've integrated into her internal reality, and once recognized, you perceive her emotional pull's intensity, despite outward restraint. The ninth signal appears in emotional spillage, truth fragments she cannot suppress. These emerge when she's fatigued, distracted, or experiencing safety. She'll release sighs transcending mere frustration. She'll reveal preferences or longings betraying her current commitment. Her gaze might extend beyond socially acceptable duration, or physical contact occurs through accidents, too frequently. These aren't accidents. They're impulses revealing where emotional energy genuinely flows. Most misinterpret these as friendliness or coincidence, but attentive observation reveals the distinct causings. There's gravitational weight behind the look, a pulse behind the contact, warmth behind language that shouldn't exist if her heart remained fully committed elsewhere. Emotional spillage carries honesty, difficult to conceal once initiated. The 10th and most diagnostic signal involves how she evaluates personal choices around you. She becomes contemplatively silent. You might hear indirect questioning about values, boundaries, or desires, inquiries never posed previously. She's measuring you, comparing you with her current partner, and crucially, assessing the potential risk-reward calculus of crossing invisible boundaries. This internal deliberation psychologically signs someone caught between longing and duty. Here's the unforgiving reality. You cannot accelerate this moment. You cannot pressure her toward admission. Attempting so fractures the delicate tension, permitting her emotional truth to surface organically. Your role isn't manipulation, isn't pursuit. Your role is to maintain calm, perceptiveness, and consistency. Become the presence she cannot dismiss, the stability she privately craves, the comprehension she secretly requires. Because this is where most fail. They recognize the attraction, but they panic. They act, they confess, they chase. The very signals that should have guided toward intimacy collapse under pressure. Genuine awareness, the variety enabling influence maintenance without damage, demands patience, restraint, and psychological acuity. Now, let's explore deeper what occurs when her mind is trapped in this tug of war. The 11th signal is nearly invisible to untrained observation. Microscopic adjustments in daily priorities. She begins rearranging small life components, her schedule timing, social routines, even subtle decisions about companion choices. Nothing dramatic, nothing conspicuous. But when these modifications consistently generate increased space for you, it's a mental signpost. She's excavating room in her reality for you to exist emotionally, even if full existence remains impossible currently. This transcends coincidence. Humans don't adjust daily patterns absent emotional motivation. When a woman starts creating space for someone else within her life, while technically committed elsewhere, her subconscious signals preference before conscious acknowledgement. She might not yet label it falling, but the alignment proceeds quietly, persistently, powerfully. The 12th signal emerges through tension communication patterns. Conflict with her current partner begins feeling qualitatively different. She might vent about matters previously tolerated. She might exhibit impatience with issues once deemed insignificant. When she vents near you, her filtering diminishes, her guard lowers. This represents internal negotiation between obligation and desire. She might exhibit impatience with issues once deemed insignificant. When she vents near you, her filtering diminishes, her guard lowers. This represents internal negotiation between obligation and desire. You're not merely witnessing her feelings. You're becoming a psychological sanctuary where she can explore emotional waters. Signal 13 involves her emotional memory catalog. She recalls details about you seeming trivial, yet treats them as precious. An offhand joke you delivered weeks ago, a personal viewpoint you casually expressed. She repeats these or references them. These memories receive internal indexing, prioritization, and emotional weighting. When a woman begins cataloging moments with you over her current relationship, her subconscious effectively rehearses what could exist without conscious admission. 14th, perhaps most unsettling, she begins mental scenario creation involving you, even suppressing them verbally. These mental rehearsals remain invisible, but influence behavior subtly. How she prolongs certain conversations, word selections carrying dual meanings, careful emotional boundary testing. These are private rehearsals of desire and potential choice. You'll notice through her energetic presence, all these signals interconnect like threads in hidden tapestry. Individually, one might appear coincidental. Collectively, they expose an emotional shift she cannot fully articulate yet. She's stepping toward you mentally, emotionally, psychologically, preceding any confession, preceding any action. Understanding these signs isn't about exploitation. It's about perceiving reality with clarity, recognizing truth before verbalization, and learning navigation without panic. Remember, power doesn't reside in your pursuit. It's in your awareness, the quiet, controlled, observant presence you sustain. Because individuals who perceive without rushing, who notice without pushing, will always comprehend the unspoken first and influence it most profoundly. Now let's discuss the 15th signal, the one hitting hardest because it operates beneath every conscious thought, her emotional honesty with herself. You'll notice small fractures in the facade she projects publicly. She hesitates before defending her current partner. She laughs somewhat hastily to mask discomfort. She occasionally contradicts herself, subtly discussing what she desires versus what she does. This signatures internal conflict, desire clashing with loyalty, revealing more than any confession could provide. 16th, equally revealing, is her selective transparency. She begins sharing personal fears or regrets with you that remain locked from everyone else, not seeking advice, not testing your loyalty, but because she unconsciously trusts you to witness her truth without judgment. This is a psychological anchor, a quiet tether pulling her closer, even while her conscious mind screams caution. You needn't act on it, but recognizing it provides advantage in understanding where her emotional investment flows. 17th is the subtle shift in her future orientation. She begins referencing moments or possibilities including you, even hypothetically. Wouldn't it be interesting if statements, casual mentions of shared experiences never realized, or jokes implying scenarios with you? These aren't flukes. They're mental rehearsals, tiny experiments in her mind where she imagines life differently, with you included. This is a psychological step nobody takes unless her heart is already wandering. The 18th signal is her curiosity intensity about your existence. Not surface-level interest, but the kind probing into your values, habits, fears, dreams. You'll notice she asks questions with follow-ups, captures details, remembers them. She begins connecting dots between your world and hers, subconsciously evaluating compatibility. This isn't casual curiosity. This is emotional cartography, the brain constructing an intimacy blueprint before acting on it. 19th, and perhaps most dangerous if ignored, is the subtle jealousy she exhibits, not overt but in nuanced forms. When someone flirts with you or compliments you excessively, she reacts in ways betraying more than politeness permits. It's micro-expressions, slight tension, a quick inhale, conversational pause. These tiny fractures reveal that her attention, her emotional energy, is no longer evenly distributed. You're becoming central in her internal importance hierarchy. The cumulative weight of these signals is undeniable. Taken collectively, they reveal emotional migration, a silent drift as profound as it is invisible to casual observers. And here's where most fail, not because they don't notice, but because they act impulsively, breaking the delicate equilibrium she's maintaining. The lesson here is relentless clarity. Observe, understand, and stay grounded. Your presence alone, patient, aware, unwavering, becomes the subtle force influencing her feelings far more than words ever could. The 20th and final hidden signal is perhaps most profound: how she prioritizes your emotional state without realizing it. She notices your moods, your energy, your unspoken cues, and adapts subtly. When she smiles, laughs, or gestures around you, it carries unconscious intent to soothe, engage, or connect. This isn't casual friendliness. This is emotional alignment, the kind occurring only when her heart is quietly, persistently shifting toward you. You may perceive her presence differently than before, lighter, warmer, more magnetic, even when she carefully maintains distance. That tension, the closeness-restraint mixture, signatures someone falling in silence. Here is the unspoken truth most never perceive. Attraction isn't declared through words first. It moves through actions, energy, and subtle behavior. Every glance, every pause, every carefully measured gesture is a breadcrumb toward the emotional reality she cannot yet confess. Understand this. The mind of a woman torn between loyalty and desire is incredibly sensitive. One wrong word, one push for confession, one attempt forcing clarity prematurely, and you risk collapsing all the signals you've spent time observing. But if you remain calm, observant, and emotionally grounded, you become the constant she can't ignore, the quiet gravitational force letting her emotions unfold without panic or judgment. There is a lesson here far bigger than attraction. It's about perception, patience, and psychological awareness power. You're not trying to manipulate her feelings. You're learning to read desire's unspoken language, to recognize subtle shifts most dismiss, and to hold yourself in a way honoring both her complexity and your own dignity. Presence is power, observation is influence, and restraint is mastery. Now take a moment to reflect. All 20 hidden signals are connected by one simple truth. Falling doesn't happen with words. It happens with perception, emotion, and subtle psychological alignment. When a woman starts gravitating toward you while still committed elsewhere, the signs are everywhere if you know where to look. You are witnessing the invisible architecture of attraction, a structure most never see until too late. If you followed this carefully, you now possess awareness most lack. The choice is yours. Act with impulsive desire or act with informed restraint. Act recklessly, and the delicate balance shatters. Act wisely, and your presence becomes magnetic, unforgettable, and deeply influential. Remember, awareness alone shifts the energy around you. The quiet power is in knowing what she feels before she admits it and carrying that knowledge with calm, unwavering certainty. If you found value in this, hit that like button for Psych Seeker and subscribe so you don't miss future insights. Stay observant, stay grounded, and let the invisible currents reveal themselves naturally. The game is subtle, and the rewards belong only to those who understand it without breaking it.